Welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of Business Velocity. I am Hannah Pniewski, one of your hosts. Myself, along with Dave Newell, are very excited to bring you this third season of our podcast. We have lots of really awesome new guests this season to come talk about all of their different areas and specialties. And myself and Dave are also going to bring you a lot of thought leadership and educational content based on our own learnings with our own clients. But we're going to start with culture because we believe that culture truly is the basis for success in any business. Every other facet of your business is going to benefit from having a great culture. And we're going to do this as a part 1 and a part 2. So episode 1 today, we're going to talk about what makes a great culture and then what gets in the way. And then in episode 2, part 2, we're going to talk about how to overcome what gets in the way. So without further ado, welcome to episode 1.
It's great.
It's great. It's season 3.
It's season 3. Here we go. Off to a good start, learning the new ways of operating for season 3. We're excited to have you all join us.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking with us as we continue to build and develop and advance this podcast. How are you, Hannah?
I'm doing good. I hear it's back to school, but because we don't have kids, it's a life I don't know. But how's back to school going for you guys?
Honestly, we're still a couple weeks away. It's early August as we're recording this, but volleyball season has begun, and we're so proud of our soon-to-be freshman daughter who made the varsity volleyball team as a freshman, and
Oh my
we're
gosh.
excited. She's super pumped. The team is super kind. So the coach has been great. Like, it's been such a blessing in many ways as she transitions into the high school to have like a team and folks that she's going to know a little differently. So we're super jacked about that. Other than that, we're just, trying to, I'll say this. I think it's going to be awesome to get back to routine, almost always about this time of year. Every week is like a different summer camp or this thing's going on over here. And it's like, hey, can you pick the kids up at 1? And you're like, that's in the middle of the day. I've got a thing going on. Okay, I'll try to figure it out. Like, there's so much juggling that happens in the summer, and it's lovely to have the kids around and all those things. And routine is also nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Predictability is nice, maybe is the way I'll say that.
Predictability is very nice. Absolutely. And as our listeners and viewers can probably relate to, there's been a summer of chaos and things happening and people traveling. We've got several clients that it's kind of hard to grab time on calendars because 2 people are out or everyone's out or whatever, or we're, on vacation.
Yeah.
So, so I'm excited to get back to some consistency and some predictability. And this season of Business Velocity, season 3, we are going to focus ourselves sort of in the spirit of coming back to school on teachings. And the guests that we have are actually all coming very prepared with some visual aids, with a very specific topic. We want this season to give you, our viewers, a library of tools to draw on in a very specific way, maybe even more, digestible than we have in the past. 3 hot tips. What can you focus on next week? Sort of like very actionable things that we can teach with a visual aid from our guests, also from us. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this season, and we hope that it'll help all the small business owners and managers and folks out there as they address their issues this fall.
Absolutely. It's a bit of a call and response. In some ways, what we've seen from the market, what we've seen from our clients, people, friends, family, partners that we work with is there's kind of an increasing demand for, just tell me how to do it. Like, just show me the path, show me the way, give me the nugget, give me that thing. And we're just saying, okay, happy to do that. That's what we love doing. We love teaching. We love partnering with folks in building out their businesses. That is our happy place. And that is our energizing, passionate space. And so we said, why not? Let's do it for season 3. Let's lean in and teach some things.
Absolutely. And, the teacher over here, one with the background in teaching, I'm going to let him go first.
Yeah. In my new background back here. Yeah.
There you go. So if you are...
I should turn this around. I basically just have been pointing it at the corner. I'm like, I need a better background. We kind of...
Yeah, you got some nice bookshelves back there.
Yeah.
I know you and the girls did a nice wood wall with the TV and everything.
Yeah.
To any of our listeners who are tuning in over, Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of those, We are going to offer all these episodes on YouTube as well, and we will probably speak to some of the visual aids. We'll probably talk about the backgrounds and our cameras, things like that. So if you want to see what we're talking about, hop over into YouTube, to our YouTube channel, Business Velocity, and come view the visual aids. Come see these nice bookshelves that are sitting behind Dave, and we'll put the link in the show notes as well.
Well, Hannah, in the spirit of teaching, what should we teach about today?
I think that I'm so glad you asked. Um, I think that we need to focus on culture because culture affects everything. No matter what, people will come and go depending on the culture. So I think we should talk about how do we create a great culture at a small business, medium-sized business, even a large business. What are the foundations?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that it really is like when we built the five facets of business, there are five components: it's culture, strategy, operations, story, and finance. Those are the things that we think about. Those are the five core elements that take place in any business, right? Those are the five things. And culture in our mind is really the foundational piece that kind of permeates all of the other aspects very clearly. And when we talk about culture, we like to think about it in terms of high performing culture, in part because it points to the end, right? Culture for culture's sake, culture will form whether you decide it or drive it to or not. You will have a culture. Often it is the personality of the owner or founder or leadership team. If it's not designed, if it's not stewarded, it just kind of defaults to what those folks are like on a day in, day out basis. And so specifically, we want to talk about high performing culture, and we're going to talk about two things today. We're going to talk about what gets in the way, like what are the obstacles that we need to be thoughtful about or address. And number two is what are the components of it? How do we actually design it, build it, kind of look in that direction? As we move to episode 2 this season, we'll start talking more about kind of the mechanics of it. But today is going to be a little bit more of what does it even look like? What are the obstacles? How do we get into it? Sound fair?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So most of the time, culture can feel like this ever moving target. On the slide, if you were looking at this, if you're listening, there's kind of this ball of yarn looking thing. And often that's what culture feels like in an organization. It feels like this ever moving target. And the truth is, that's because it is. Culture doesn't have an end. It's not something where you can create a 3-step plan and then it's over and you never have to think about it again. It's contextual, it's situational, it ebbs and flows with pressure and environmental changes. And you have to be conscious of it. It's a work in progress. It's a pattern to disrupt if it's negative. It's a pattern to support and drive forward if it's positive. But it's a pattern. It's not an end point. It's not like building a bridge, right? Once you build the bridge is built and you don't necessarily have to think about it that much anymore. Now it's culture. It's this thing that's driving. So what we want to do is help you and anybody who's building a business or leading a business think about how do we go from this kind of complex ball of yarn piece to this, all right, we've got a consistent approach. This is the thing we can drive regardless of context, situation changes. This is the thing that we can drive. What does that look like? How do we even define what culture is? I'm a huge fan of Seth Godin. If you haven't checked out his stuff, to me, he is such a teacher, such a powerful resource in teaching so many things. And I love adopting his definition of what culture is, which is people like us do things like this. It's the simplest, cleanest definition of culture I've ever heard. And why I like it is it really captures the two aspects that we think about when we're driving culture in an organization. Number one is people like us, right? That is claiming a space. That is saying, this is, if you want to work here, you have to think like this, believe these things. This is values. This is vision. This is purpose. Think about that as if you want to work here, you need to ascribe to this organization's belief system, right? And if you don't, that's okay. No judgment. You don't have to believe what we believe, but you don't get to work here, right? You have to be a people like us. And the second part, which is the part that most organizations miss, is do things like this. And do things like this are the actions that make that come alive, right? What do we do that makes that belief system or the way we think true? And it's the marriage between those two things that is ultimately culture. Hannah, anything you want to add?
I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that when we work with our clients, it is interesting to kind of like peek into all these different cultures and come meet them where they're at and sort of observe and see what has developed organically, to your point, just because culture has defaulted to whoever the founder or CEO or leadership team is or are. Then, we end up talking to them about like, well, what intentionally do you want it to be? Like, don't just fall into the default. You can create something based off of what it has been and shape it to, you know, an evolved, I was trying to think of a different word, but an evolved version uh, to reflect what you want
Yeah.
the culture to be in the future. So I think for anybody listening who maybe feels like they're kind of tangled up in that ball of yarn, it's like, how do you even like start to change culture? I think just know that it is possible. We help people do it all the time. We also see people
Yeah.
do it all the time pretty organically when they set those certain goals for themselves and for the team culturally, and when they acknowledge some of the things that get in the way. I think that's also really key to unlock like, okay, well, maybe it sort of snowballed into being this place that's sort of reflective of me,
Yeah.
CEO or founder, but I got to see like what's in the way of getting it to living beyond me and prescribing to something bigger than even myself and the just the financial goals here that we have for the company. Yeah, I think you're going to go into pitfalls next, but I think just kind of sitting here thinking about that and how we've sort of observed this happen time and time again in these different businesses we've worked with.
Yeah. And I think your point's well taken in that, just because the culture is what it is at a period of time doesn't mean that it can't change. Again, it is a pattern, right? And it's really on the leader, the leadership team to recognize that pattern and then to decide to do something about it, right? Deciding to do nothing about it is still a decision, right? Inaction
Yeah.
is a choice. So, what this does, and what I'm about to share in terms of pitfalls and structure, is the choice that you have as a leader to say, okay, do we want to do something about it? Right? We like to say we're all leading all the time, either well or poorly, and that leadership is a choice. The choice you have is to recognize, okay, this is what we're seeing, and we have the choice to either lean in and do something about it, or we have the choice to do nothing and just maintain it as it is. Who we're talking to here is the folks that want to make the choice to do something different, where
Yeah.
they see an opportunity to change that pattern and drive something forward. So let's talk about the three pitfalls, because essentially the pitfalls are good indicators that I need to make a different choice. So here's the three things that show up in an organization. I'll dive into these a little bit more detail as we work our way through. But number one is what we refer to as unspoken truces. And unspoken truces are the stories that get told, the cultural elements that it's just the way it is around here, right? Oh, don't talk to Dave because, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, is that true? Is that a cultural thing? Or is that just a thing you experienced once and now we have a culture of not telling Dave things? Well, that's an unspoken truce. We didn't design that. We didn't formally create that. It's just how it is around here. The second element is framing without action. I can't tell you how many organizations we've talked to over the years and worked with who have values and they have a vision and they have a mission or purpose and they do those things relatively well and they're up on a wall and it's great, but they never talk about it. It's not a thing. They don't hold people to the standard. They don't hold themselves to those standards. And in many ways, that actually works backwards. It's basically saying, hey, we care about it, but not really. So don't worry about it so much. It's just a thing that's over here. And that sends a message to your team, to your organization that, yeah, we say we care about these things, but not really. And that erodes trust. It permeates other aspects of your organization. So framing without action is a significant pitfall. And the last piece is that there's no buy-in on, we do a lot of sales work, we do a lot of culture work. On the sales side, we like to say a confused mind doesn't buy, which means if your product isn't clear, if your delivery isn't clear, somebody's not going to buy it. It's too much cognitive load. Exactly the same thing happens on the culture side, which is a confused mind doesn't buy in. If they're confused about what you stand for, where you're going, who you want to be as a group of people, and the behaviors that shape that, they're not going to buy in because it's confusing or it's amorphous or it's a moving target. It's difficult to enroll people in a culture if you're not actually creating that clarity to get them to buy in and then ritualizing to affirm that culture. A couple more things on unspoken truces. It's culture not clearly defined. We haven't actually taken the time to define it or clarify what we mean. And so we have this culture of unspoken truces. It's often based on the owner or the leader's personality. What do they tolerate? What's the floor? If you think about a leader's floor, like this is their worst level of behavior, that is often the ceiling for their employees. That's what they try to match. Well, Dave's only doing this. Like Dave's, he shows up late to meetings, which is true. He shows up late to meetings, so we can show up late to meetings, right? So I can be 2 minutes late because the leader's floor is my ceiling if I'm the employee. So what we're trying to do here with leaders is raise the floor. And the last piece then is unspoken truces is often based on what we call behind the scenes conversations or indirect conversations. It's the story that, Hannah tells somebody else and somebody else tells somebody else. And pretty soon that's what it's like around here. And we haven't driven it or stewarded it. Framing without action is, again, kind of, we put the values on the wall, but we don't live them in the halls, is maybe the fastest way to say that. It's not clear what you want me to do, right? What do you mean by that value? It's not measurable. And if there's no action, the truth is, I don't believe you. It actually erodes trust when you have framing of culture and no standard of what that means, and we're not holding people accountable to it. Again, it's a, hey, we're like this, but not really. It's not really something we do. I'm not really going to hold you to that standard, etc. And so pretty soon the leadership team loses trust in their organization because they're not holding anybody to that standard. Of course, there's going to be moments where you're not holding people to the standard or it takes you a long time to act on it, etc. I'm guilty of that as well. It's really the effort here to move in that direction. The last pitfall, and then Hannah, I'll let you jump in, is no buy-in, right? So again, I mentioned a confused mind doesn't buy in, right? And what we're saying there is it's not necessarily about authority, right? It's not you have to live these values or you're fired. It's about enrollment. And the difference between an authority and enrollment, authority is do it because I told you to. Enrollment is do it because you're bought in. Do it because you believe in this, because this is a thing that you see that connects to the meaning you have as a person. People like us do things like this. And if I can get you invested, and if I can tell that story, if I can ritualize it, if I can get you bought in, now I'm actually creating a high performing team because we are all swimming in the same direction. We are believing the same things. We are pushing hard and we're holding each other to an accountability standard. We are enrolled. And enrollment is significantly more powerful than authority when it comes to culture.
There's so much to this topic. Thank goodness we're doing a part two. But I will say that it's easy, especially with, I would say the small businesses that we work with, medium-sized businesses that we work with, to get affected by so many other things that can like throw your culture off balance. I mean, a lot of companies that are like project-based, there's a lot of stress in that. You have to constantly be bringing in new projects and starting new projects. And then if your projects aren't all the same, there's so much that can affect how you treat each other and how people operate like us, like this, on a day-to-day basis. So it's so key to have a great culture really locked in and practiced every day through, the things that we'll talk about next time, of like how to actually implement this and hold to it, because you can get knocked about by so many things: external stimulus, your clients, the new person you just hired, your middle managers, the economy itself. Like, there's so many other things that can affect this precious culture that you want to create. And so it's really key to nail it down, lock it down, have everybody live into it every day, and show people what it means to live into it every day. I do think I 100% agree with the enrollment piece over the authority piece, because I think especially in the time that we live in right now, authority is just white noise, honestly. I think also, especially like as a millennial, like and I know Gen Z for sure, we don't respond well to authority. We respond really well to enrollment.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that everyone across the board would as well.
No, it's a really great point, in particular too, about different even cultural aspects of generations. And, there's a lot of nuance in how you talk to a boomer versus a Gen Xer versus millennial versus Gen Z. And again, like culture permeates everything you do. And if it was easy, we wouldn't be talking about it, right? It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to maintain and sustain over time. Next time, we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that, right? Like, how do we actually create it? And the truth is, all you really need to do is think about, well, what are the opposites of those three pitfalls, right? And there's really three things when it comes to creating a great culture. And we'll talk about this quite a bit more next time. But one is establishing that clear cultural framework. That's the people like us part, right? We have to be clear about what that means, and we have to be articulate, right? People like us. And the second part is do things like this, right? Which is creating clear, measurable behaviors and accountability. And the last piece then is ritual to enroll, ritual for the purpose of enrollment. And I have a really great example of an organization we partnered with some odd years ago up in Winston-Salem, who to me, it's called The Variable. And it's a marketing agency. And man, did they figure out ritual when it comes to culture? And so I want to highlight them a little bit as well. And lastly, we'll talk about, kind of foundationally to all of this is, trust is really the core of any organization. Do we trust each other? Do we trust the leadership team? Do we trust, Susie to get that, TPS report done? Do we trust Tom to, make that call and get that work done? And the foundation of that is ultimately, can we trust each other? And it takes those three components to build trust, but trust is also a knowable thing. It's an outcome, right? So I want to look at next time the inputs that actually lead to trust, and how do we measure for those things? How do we design those things? And then create ritual to reinforce them so we can build high trust organizations. And if you have a high trust organization, you have a higher performing organization, which is why how to create a high performing organization is based on all the things we just shared with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So between now and then, we'd love for everyone who's tuning in to start thinking about what pitfalls are standing in the way of a great culture at your organization.
Absolutely.
And review those pitfalls. So 3 things we talked about: unspoken truces, framing without action, and no buy-in. Which one of those are holding you back? And then when it comes to addressing them and making them better and opening up great culture, which of these 3 things do you need? Do you need a clear culture framework? Do you need clear behaviors? Do you need rituals to enroll? And we'll dive more into that next time.
What a start for season 3.
What a start. We did it. We hope this was valuable and informative. And we thank you all for tuning in and checking this out on all the platforms. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for joining us on Business Velocity. Today's insights are just the beginning of enhancing your business's momentum. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also explore our framework at theevolveddifference.com. And remember, the time is now to take these strategies and apply your learning and achieve velocity. See you next time.